As they say, hello, hello, or Renee would have said. You know, I've got a couple of things I'm going to show you. Things just you have to think about. Yes, sure, we have the money to buy. Yesterday we went out and bought replacement wipers blades. These are just wiper blades. One's a long one and one's a shorter one for a Toyota Rush. Never been replaced since new. Car is maybe 2 years old. I tried to explain that you have to replace them occasionally because they might damage your screen. Those who have had older cars have seen the marks on the screens itself. Well, they charge for those two collectively 950 pesos for the two. Obviously one was more expensive than the other. But they're Bosch, so they're a relatively safe brand to buy. Not Toyota, but they're Bosch. But today I went on Lazada. Exactly the same model, the same item. And the total is 480 pesos delivered for the two. Again, a saving of nearly 50%. Now also, I love my Coke. I know people say you shouldn't drink it, and I know that some people say it doesn't do you any harm. There's pros and cons, I know. In a local sari-sari, you'll probably pay 20 pesos currently. Some charge 25, but most are 20 pesos. Now the size is 290 ml. Now if you go to some of the bulk sellers in drinks, you'll buy a pack here of 12. In a supermarket, you'll pay 208 on average. In a sari-sari that is actually selling bulk drink packs like that, you'll pay 290 or 295 currently for a pack of 12. That's quite a saving because 2 12s are 24, that's 240, so that would be 480. 480 against 420. So that's three bottles for free by buying them bulk. Just as a guide, Coke is a good guide around the world as to the cost of living. Now, my thought for today, my second thought for today, is that of, I've forgotten. See, my thought for the day is about whatever pops up in your head. That's right, I remember now, getting old now. You know, choosing the right woman is only part of the job. Choosing the right family is another part. We can, on the surface, discover the pros and cons of a partner's family when we meet them for the first time. Of course, generally they're a little bit shy, a little bit polite and interested in where you've come from in a very basic way. Some of you might suggest that they also see you as a money pot, a honeypot. And that's probably quite true in certain places. I hate it when people say those people in the provinces are in some way less educated, a little bit more simple. I would say that people in the provinces are no different. It's like saying, I was brought up and lived in London, and to suggest that myself, brought up in London, would be a different person. Yes, maybe from somebody where I was brought up, which is in a little town, little village called Sonning-on-Thames, on the lock itself at Sonning on the River Thames. Now, I went to a private school. I had a good education. I got all my GCEs, and I moved into a practical side of life. I left the country that I was born in. Yes, born in London, Paddington. And I left to the far end of the world, a place called New Zealand. Again, Auckland was my destination. Auckland, the biggest city in New Zealand, the highest population, that is. The other major populations are, of course, the capital, Wellington, and that of the South Island, Christchurch. There are other places like Dunedin, Nelson, Invercargill, and in the north, Hamilton, Tauranga, and places such as the Bay of Islands. All these different places are, you could say, they're country, they're provincial, they're the province. But I don't believe that for 1 minute, just because we're in the Philippines, that people should be judged because they were brought up in the province. The province means just they lived in the country. The countryside was close by. Most of the people who have been here in the Philippines would realize also that driving along a highway, usually there's just one building block on the side of the road. You might come to a small, what we might call a hamlet, a group of houses, maybe with a few stores, a petrol station nearby, and it's considered blink and you miss it. But it is a little community. Like if you go north of Negillion, you'll come across Burgos, 20 minutes away up in the mountain on the way to Baguio. If you come from Bulacan region and you live in Ballywag, you'll come to San Rafael, which is not as busy as that of Ballywag itself. But from Ballywag, 10-15 minutes drive, you're in the middle of the metropolis of SM Mall. What was the other one? Something, Walter Mart, another big mall. Not as big in any way, shape or form as that of SM, but you're still in the province. And the idea that girls and boys are brought up by their mothers and fathers here, all those Beverly Hills variety, Beverly Hill Billies, is a misinformation and a wrong assumption. You don't think that because your mother or father were landowners and farmed the land, that they didn't aspire to sending their children to market, to collect all of the various things for them while they were working hard in the fields. And when time came to educate them, that they sent them to school and then on to college to get a further education. Of course they did. Those that could afford it did, even at the expense of the family. Often one of the family members may be working overseas, sending money back for the nephews or nieces to get a good education, to give them too a chance of getting ahead. But what I'm trying to get across to you is that all families are different. not all families are always interested in their daughter's husband or boyfriend or companion just because he has money and he's a foreigner. As long as you let the family know that they are family and you consider them family, they must also realise that you're not the local BDO who's just arrived on the doorstep and there's someone that they can tap on the shoulder every time they need a little helping hand financially. If you don't do that, then of course you're making a rod for your own back. But as long as they're aware that it's not on to put pressure on your wife or your girlfriend, to put pressure on you to supply them with money when they need it. Of course, as a mother or a father would be as important to your partner, what you would do maybe is occasionally make sure they have an extra bag of rice in the house, maybe topping up their gas supply, maybe in the home, maybe occasionally thinking about maybe putting internet on their house. After all, what is 1,500 pesos for you to arrange to make it an automatic payment? So the family then can keep in touch regularly with their other siblings and their other family members. Those just are demonstrations of what you can do to help and assist them. The other anomaly here also on channels here is also to suggest that building a home is not a good idea. Of course, that tends to be generated by those that are only interested in preserving their money. When I say preserving, I mean they might see their wealth as something that's diminishing now that they're retired, but they also selfishly tend to consider that to share that with your partner is a bad thing. After all, what is wrong with building a home and providing a legacy for when you're gone? If you're not able to provide maybe an exchangeable pension to your loved one, you can at least provide them with an ongoing security of knowing that they have a roof over their head and somewhere they call home. Of course, they're going to have to maintain the property the best they can. Some don't, some do. Some extend, some just let it chug along with the occasional top-up from a friendly neighbour who can assist them for a few hundred pesos. But to suggest that somehow it's a bad thing, I think is incorrect. After all, if you add up what you would probably spend, I think to myself, 10 years, what would I have spent in rent? Even the most basic house would have cost at least 10,000 a month to rent. So that's 120,000. Is that right? It's 120,000. Over 10 years, that's 1.2 million I would have paid in rent. Of course, that assumes that the rent was still the same rate. Now, for 1.2 million, you can build a small but modest home on a property that is in an area that your partner or your girlfriend or wife lives in, maybe even on the compound itself. I would say that that's not a very large investment for you as a foreigner to make. It's something over a period of time you could probably afford even out of your pension, done over a couple of years of building it to a live-in stage and then adding to it as you go along. Again, still a good investment. You always seem to judge everything on the basis that what if everything went wrong? So what? If everything went wrong, you've wasted that money. That's your answer, isn't it? You wasted the money. Have you? Because even though you might not be there, the house remains there. And the house remains a refuge for your family that you left behind. Or maybe you were shown the door. Either way, it doesn't really make sense to argue that renting is the best option, unless, of course, you always planned on moving around. If you plan to retire and move around, one has to ask, what kind of retirement were you planning? Were you planning that at 80? Were you planning that at 90? I don't think so. So I think that those that suggest that you only rent, you don't buy, you don't acquire, have a very short-sighted and fairly narrow-minded view of the world. Would you have done that back home? I know in Europe a lot of people spend their whole life renting, but then of course the cost of buying a home in Europe is just like trying to buy a home in California. Not cheap. But if you find the outback or the off the beaten track in parts of America or England, of course the prices are lower. They are still high for somebody starting at the bottom, but nothing's not achievable. Remember, when you start off fresh, new wife, new children, you come with it the dreams of never leaving your side, living to an old age, to sit in twin rocking chairs on the veranda, maybe. But life, of course, isn't like that. So guys, take a look at really what life is all about in the Philippines. It's about being happy, number one, being happy, being content in your own surroundings, and being happy with yourself, and also being able to make good choices. You can still eat well, but you don't all have to go to the cafe for a coffee in the morning or a cold drink. You can bring them home. You can even buy them at sari-saris on your drive around, enjoying a little bit of the scenery around your area. Go for a picnic. Go for a drive. Explore the area in which you live. If you have a vehicle, you can always do that, whether it's a motorbike, scooter, tricycle, or a car. But be adventurous. Go out there and make life how you intend to carry on. A new experience, a worthwhile event living here in the Philippines. Bye now.